Hi all my crafty friends, and welcome back to Designs by Gaddis. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad you found my channel. Be sure to like this video and subscribe. By doing so, you will help others, just like yourself, be able to find my home decor DIY videos. Today I have a fun little project for us. I will show you how I made this adorable egg static tray and the eggs for it. I used 2 Dollar Tree wood trays, 2 stir sticks, and 1 small piece of wood from Hobby Lobby. The first thing I did was stain all the wood with a mixture of water and black paint to get the gray color. After the staining was dried, I used Gorilla Glue and hot glue to attach everything. I put the Gorilla Glue around the outside of the paint stick and then put hot glue in the middle. I did this so the hot glue would help hold everything while the Gorilla Glue dried. Gorilla Glue usually dries completely in about 2 to 4 hours. I placed the stir sticks on the back edge of the tray and held them in place until the hot glue dried. I marked where I wanted the top tray to go with a pencil, and then made a square within the lines with the Gorilla Glue and added hot glue to the center. I used various clips to hold everything tight until the Gorilla Glue had dried. I actually let it sit for a day while I worked on other projects. The next day I removed all the clips and used this piece of wood from Hobby Lobby. I attached it using hot glue since it wouldn't be holding anything. I mixed up water and black paint again to stain the top piece of wood. I decided I wanted the tray to be just a little bit darker, so I went ahead and used the stain mixture on the entire piece. This time I used my hot air gun instead of waiting for the stain to dry. I created the Egg-tastic Easter in Design Space and used my Cricut to cut it out. I applied the vinyl to the top piece of wood, trying to get it as centered as I could. I didn't use any Mod Podge or my iron technique this time because I may want to use this tray for other seasons. So now I can just peel the vinyl off and put a different saying on. I cut 2 pieces of ribbon, 1 for each box. I cut them long enough that I could hot glue them to the back of the box. I wanted to cover up the part of the bottom box that didn't stain the same as the rest of the box with the ribbon. So I aligned the ribbon for each box at the bottom. I used painter's tape when I had the ribbon in place and then pulled it tight and straight and glued it in the back. I felt like it needed something else. So I used a piece of twine and tied a small bow and then hot glued it to the center of each box. For the hay, I used some crinkle shred paper from Dollar General. I filled both the bottom and top trays until I was happy with the way they looked. So now that the tray was ready, I needed to get to work on the eggs. I used Dollar Tree plastic eggs. For the first egg, I placed a dab of hot glue on the larger end, what I call the bottom of the egg, and started wrapping twine around it. I continued wrapping and placing dabs of hot glue whenever I thought I needed some to hold the twine in place. The egg kept popping open, so I decided to use a piece of tape to hold it together. I continued wrapping the twine and adding glue as needed until I was at the top of the egg. When I got to the top, I added the last dab of glue and worked the end of the twine into it, and then cut off the excess. I had this Easter ribbon and decided to place it around the middle of the twine egg and glued a tiny bow in the front. For the next egg, I went ahead and taped the center. I used hot glue on the egg and then rolled it around in some moss. I tried Mod Podge at first, but I couldn't get the moss to stick to the egg. I continued adding glue and rolling the egg in the moss until the entire egg was covered. I would suggest using a green egg or painting the egg green for the moss-covered eggs. I had a hard time making sure the bright orange didn't show through and had to use a good bit of moss. I used my hands and mashed the moss into the hot glue repeatedly. When the entire egg was covered, I trimmed the moss so it didn't look so wild. I actually made 2 moss-covered eggs doing this. I would also suggest when you're doing the moss-covered eggs to use a box or something with sides when you do this, because this makes a huge mess. I am still finding pieces of moss all over my craft room. Next, I took some of the eggs outside and spray painted them with white chalk paint. I used skewers and inserted the skewer into the bottom of each egg. I never realized plastic eggs have holes in the bottom and top. Am I the only person that didn't know this? I then placed each egg on a skewer into a piece of styrofoam. This made the eggs a lot easier to paint. I used some antique white crafting paint and painted the eggs. It took 2 coats for me to get an even coverage. I used this paintbrush I found at Dollar Tree this week. I got 2 different sizes, and I'm telling you, I would recommend this brush for crafting. The bristles are actually soft, and the brush is a nice paintbrush. Not like the plastic brushes that I've been getting in the past. I actually wound up painting more eggs with the antique white paint than these 3. After the eggs had dried, I started decorating them using twine ribbon and buttons. I used Dollar Tree twine ribbon I had in my stash and glued it around the middle of each egg. I found these little flower button stickers that I had gotten from Wish a while back and decided to put them on some of the eggs using hot glue. I also have a stash of buttons and glued them to a couple of the eggs. And just look at how stinking cute this little egg static Easter tray turned out. If you haven't already, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. I upload weekly home decor DIY videos, and you know you don't want to miss any of them. So go ahead and hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. To create this adorable bunny butt tiare tray flower pot, I used a Dollar Tree succulent pot and placed a piece of floral foam in the bottom. I cut a piece of Dollar Tree white felt down and used a very small styrofoam ball. I wrapped the felt around the styrofoam ball to create the bunny's butt and used a rubber band to secure the felt to the ball. For the bunny's tail, I used a white Dollar Tree pom-pom and glued it onto the felt. I folded a piece of felt in half and cut out some bunny ears. I actually cut out 4 ears and glued 2 of them together to make the ear a little stronger, and glued them onto the styrofoam ball. I trimmed down some of the felt at the end of the ball and then glued it into the pot. He needed some feet, so I used another piece of felt and cut feet out and used a marker to draw the pads of the feet. I then glued the bunny feet onto the bunny. For the carrots, I used some floral wire and wood beads. I cut the wire down to size and used 3 6mm beads and 2 4mm beads to create each carrot. I left a portion of the wire sticking out at the bottom of the carrot so I could push it into the floral foam. I added a dab of hot glue to keep the beads in place. I then added another dab of glue at the top of each carrot. I used some orange chalk paint and painted the carrots. I then used some of the greenery from this large carrot I had in my stash. I cut a small portion of it off and then glued it to the top of each of the carrots. I made a total of 3 carrots for this pot. I created the words for my sign in Design Space and used this little Dollar Tree chalkboard sign. And look at how stinking cute this little bunny butt pot turned out. If you haven't already, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. I upload weekly home decor DIY videos, and you know you don't want to miss any of them. So go ahead and hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. I decided I needed a new spring garland for my tier tray. I originally thought about using 3 different size beads, but decided to use 14mm and 16mm beads on it. Instead of painting the 14mm beads, I thought I would try a paint water mix. To make the stain, I used water and 5 different spring colors: yellow, purple, pink, green, and blue. I thought these colors would look amazing and spring-like strung together. I poured water into 5 plastic cups and then added the different paint colors to the water and stirred them well. I used a piece of twine and placed 5 of the 14mm beads on it. I then submerged the beads into the paint and water mixture. I left the beads soaking in the mixture overnight. The next morning, this is what the cups looked like. As you can see, the paint is on the top and the water settled in the bottom. I pulled all the beads out and placed them on a box. I used my hot air gun to dry the beads. Since the colors were a little lighter than I wanted after dyeing, I mixed more paint with the water in the cups and placed the beads back in the mixture for a couple more hours. I then dried the beads again with my hot air gun to make sure I liked the colors, and the colors were perfect. After drying all the beads, it was time to start stringing them. I removed the beads from the twine and placed them on a paper towel in separate stacks. I wanted the beads to have an aged, worn look to them. So, to achieve this, I used a very fine grit sandpaper and lightly sanded each of the beads. I used a piece of painter's tape and secured it to the end of the twine I'm using for the garland. I did this so it would be easier to slip the beads onto the twine. I placed 1 bead of each color onto the twine, and then I strung a 16mm natural color bead before starting the next set of beads. I continue adding the beads in this manner until I'd used all the colored beads. I tied both the ends and took the beads outside. Since the paint and water mixture made the beads very dull, I decided to spray them with a gloss protectant to give them a little shine. While the beads were outside drying, I decided to make a tag and a tassel for the garland. I used this little mason jar shaped tag and painted it with Waverly plaster chalk paint. And it did take 2 coats of paint to get the even coverage. Once the front of the tag was dried, I turned the tag over and did the same thing on the back and the sides. For the tassel, I used some of this purple ribbon I had in my stash and some of the twine I had strung the beads on. I wrapped the ribbon and twine around my hand about 10 times. I left the ribbon and twine wrapped around my hand and placed another piece of twine around the top center of the tassel. I tied the twine around the top of the tassel, wrapped it around the tassel again, and then tied a knot to hold the tassel together. I cut the bottom of the tassel. For the top of the tassel, I used twine and wrapped it around the top until I was happy with the way it looked, and then used hot glue to hold it in place. I untwisted most of the twine to give the tassel a poofy look. Is poofy a real word? I don't know, but you see what I did. I then took the twine from the garland and the twine from the tassel, tied them together, and added hot glue to hold it. I used 2 buttons and painted them with gray chalk paint. Once the buttons were dry, I created a little bunny by gluing them onto the tag. I then glued a Dollar Tree pom-pom on the bottom button to give the bunny a tail. The pom-pom was a little too fluffy for me, so I used my scissors and trimmed it down. For the bunny ears, I used a pipe cleaner. Cut it down to size, shaped it into a bunny ear shape, and glued it to the tag. And just look at how cute this bunny turned out. I used a piece of the same ribbon I had used on the tassel around the neck of the bunny and glued it into place. To attach the tag to the garland, I pulled the twine from the garland through the hole of the tag, tied a knot, and glued it. I thought the bunny was a little light on this white tag, so I used some antiquing wax and the dry brush method to darken it up a little and give it more of a rustic farmhouse look. And just look at how adorable this Easter bead garland turned out. I just love it. If you haven't already, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. I upload weekly home decor DIY videos, and you know you don't want to miss any of them. So go ahead and hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. Today, I'll be turning this Dollar General sign into a cute spring and Easter tier tray sign. I actually got this sign for half price last year. It was 75 cents, and you can't beat that. I used a pair of pliers and removed the metal piece from the front. I wanted to remove the paper from the picture so I could paint it. I used rubbing alcohol and a scraper and started removing the paper from the picture. It took some work, but I eventually got all the paper and glue residue off, and then used my hot air gun to dry it. I decided to paint the picture with brown acrylic paint first, and then I used white chalk paint. I'm running low on white chalk paint, so I poured some onto the picture and painted it. At first, I thought the sign was actually wood, but it was actually hard-pressed cardboard. So the alcohol made some of the edges of the picture swell up. I decided to use tumbling tower blocks to create a frame around the edge so it would cover up the swelling. I used this Americana wax to stain the blocks. I just love this wax. It's a light color and perfect for most of my projects. I then hot glued the blocks onto the picture. I had to use a miter box and saw to cut down 2 of the blocks, and I had to get my hubby to do it because I got so frustrated. It was my first time using a miter box. I created this cute cut file using Inkscape. I am currently learning Inkscape and plan on starting a series to show you how you can create your own cut files using Inkscape. If you are interested in learning, I'll leave a link in the description so you will be notified when I start the series. I'll also leave a link in the description for the cut file or the pre-cut vinyl. I layered the different pieces onto the transfer paper and then applied it to the sign. I then applied gloss Mod Podge to the entire picture frame. And just look at how stinking cute this little tier tray sign turned out. I just love it. If you haven't already, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. I upload weekly home decor DIY videos, and you know you don't want to miss any of them. So go ahead and hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. I love these cute little tier tray signs and the Easter bunny I made using a foam dice from Dollar Tree. If you're looking to decorate a tier tray for Easter and spring, you will definitely want to check out this video. I got this little canvas and stand at Dollar General. I knew it would look amazing on a tier tray. It was the perfect size. I like the natural wood color of the stand, so all I had to do was paint the tiny canvas, and I used plaster chalk paint. It did take 2 coats to cover the image that was already on the canvas. While the canvas dried, I found this free cut file from Craft House. I'll leave a link in the description so you can check it out. I sized the cut file to fit on the canvas and then cut it using my Cricut. Removed it from the transfer tape and applied it to the dried canvas. I added a small yellow buffalo check bow to the corner of the canvas. And it was that simple to create this adorable easel sign for my Easter tier tray. I had this wooden tag left over from Christmas and decided to use it. It was already painted white, so all I had to do was size the free cut file from Craft House and apply it to the tag. I'll leave a link to this cut file also in the description because I know we all love free stuff. The original cut file was solid black, so I loaded it into Design Space and decided to add some color to it. I used some twine and made a little flower pot using hot glue to hold it on the tag. I then used a lighter to burn away some of the furry strings on the twine. I removed these little wildflowers from a Dollar Tree pick and hot glued them so they looked like they were coming out of the twine vase. And just look at how stinking cute this little tiara tray tag turned out. I painted this piece of scrap wood with plaster chalk paint. I sized and cut another free cut file from Craft House. The link to it will be in the description also. I used transfer paper and aligned the bunnies on it. And then placed them onto the wood. I then used 3 Dollar Tree pom-poms and glued them to the bunnies' butts. The pom-poms seemed a little big to me, so I trimmed them down. I love how the pom-poms add some dimension to the sign. These bunnies are so adorable. To create the little bunny for my tiara tray, I used a Dollar Tree foam dice, 3 white balloons, and some burlap ribbon. I actually purchased the cut file for this project from Craft House. I'll leave a link in the description for it also. I cut the neck off of the balloons and stretched them over the dice. All I can say is be careful when you do this. I scared my poor Princess Crazy Paws. She was sitting next to me in her princess chair, and the dice slipped and flew in her direction. She stayed under my bed for about an hour. Next, I took the vinyl and applied it to the balloon. To make the ears, I used some burlap ribbon and cut it in the shape of bunny ears. For the pink part of the ears, I used a piece of pink paper and glued it to the burlap. You could use pink felt, I just didn't have any on hand. I had trouble getting the ears glued to the dice, so I used a small crafter stick, glued the ear to it, and then glued it to the back of the bunny head. As you can see, I had a floral crown to begin with. I just didn't like the crown, so I removed it with my fingernails and decided to make a spring hat for my bunny. I used more of the burlap ribbon I had used for the ears. I wrapped it around the bunny head and glued it. I pulled a leaf off of some flowers, folded it over, and glued it to the front of the burlap hat. I then used a pink flower from this ribbon and glued it on top of the leaf. And now I have the cutest tiara tray bunny face ever. I will leave links to all these files in the description below so you can check them out if you want to. DIY videos, and you know you don't want to miss any of them. So go ahead and hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. Today I'm making this adorable fabric bunny using a buffalo print bandana I got for 99 cents from Hobby Lobby this past weekend. I had this little bunny cutout that I used as a template. With a black Sharpie, I traced the bunny on the back of the fabric. I actually folded the bandana in half before tracing so I would have 2 bunnies cut just the same. After tracing it, I cut the bunny on the lines that I had traced. And yes, I finally purchased a decent pair of scissors. and I keep reminding myself to use them only on paper and fabric. After I cut the bunny, I have two just the same size. I then put the bunnies together and use pins to hold them in place. And guys, I'm sorry, but for whatever reason, I didn't get the part where I was sewing the bunny with it turned inside out. So I will show you the stitch using this white felt and black string. I sewed the bunny from one foot all the way around to the other foot, leaving the space at the bottom open so I could apply the stuffing. I then started adding the stuffing and used a dowel to get the stuffing up into the ears. After I added the stuffing, I went back around the outside of the bunny to close up any holes. I wanted the bunny to look handmade and rustic. I continued stitching the entire bunny and closed the hole at the bottom. I decided the bunny needed some eyes. I found these two buttons in my stash and sewed them onto the bunny, trying to make sure they were as centered and even as possible. The last thing I did was add a little tail using a Dollar Tree white pom-pom and added a piece of twine around his neck. And look at him. He is so adorable and looks amazing on my spring tier tray. If you haven't already, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. I upload weekly home decor DIY videos, and you know you don't want to miss any of them. So go ahead and hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. I am going to show you how to make tier tray carrots using items you already have. The first is a fabric carrot. I created this template so I could cut out the carrot. I used a piece of carbon paper to trace the outline of the carrot onto the cardboard. I put a Dollar Tree cutting mat under the cardboard and used an X-Acto knife to cut it out. I had this buffalo print fabric in my stash that I'd gotten from Walmart a while back and decided to use it for my fabric carrot. I placed the fabric onto the cutting mat. I traced around my template and then cut the carrot out of the fabric. I then took the fabric and folded it in half. I used my iron to make a crease in the middle of the carrot. I started at the bottom of the carrot and sewed the carrot up to the top. I left the carrot open at the top so I could put the stuffing inside. I am not a big sewer, so I don't know the name of the stitch I am doing, and to be perfectly honest, this is about the only thing I can do with a needle and thread. I turned the carrot right side out. I used a paper straw out of my stash at the bottom of the carrot to get it turned. My fingers are just too fat to go down to the bottom of the carrot. I began stuffing the carrot with stuffing out of my stash. If you don't have stuffing, you can use plastic shopping bags, paper towels, or even newspaper. Again, I used the paper straw to get the stuffing into the bottom of the carrot. To make the greenery at the top of the carrot, I cut some pieces off of a Dollar Tree hula skirt. I used a plastic cup with some water and added some green acrylic paint. I put some of the paint into the water and mixed it well. I let this sit for a few minutes and then took it out and left it on a piece of wax paper to dry. Once the grass was dry, I tied a piece of twine at the top and secured it with hot glue. I then placed the tied end into the top of the carrot and used another piece of twine around the top of the carrot to hold the grass in place. Next, I made a carrot using some buttons out of my stash. I used a piece of thread and fed the thread through the buttonholes to secure them. I started with the smallest button at the bottom and worked my way up to the largest carrot. This gave them a carrot shape. Once I was finished stringing the buttons, I took them outside and spray painted them with orange spray paint and let them dry. After the paint was dry, I glued more of the grass I had dyed on the top of the buttons and used twine to create a small bow. Next, I made an adorable carrot with some scrap wood I have. I found the center of the wood and then used a ruler to mark my cut lines from the center to the outside corner on each side. I took the wood outside and cut down the lines using a miter saw. If you don't have a miter saw, you can use a miter box and saw for this step, or you can try to just cut on your line with a handsaw. After cutting the wood into a carrot shape, I used orange chalk paint and painted the entire carrot. I glued more of the grass at the top of the carrot. To finish off the carrot, I glued a piece of Dollar Tree lace at the top of the wood and tied a knot in a piece of buffalo print ribbon and glued it to the top of the lace ribbon. To make the beaded carrots, I used wood beads and some Dollar Tree floral wire. I cut the wire down to size and used 3 6mm beads and 2 4mm beads to create each carrot. I left a portion of the wire sticking out at the bottom of the carrot so I could push it into the floral foam. I added a dab of hot glue to keep the beads in place. I then added another dab of glue at the top of each carrot. I used some orange chalk paint and painted the carrots. I then used some of the greenery from this large carrot I had in my stash. I cut a small portion of it off and then glued it to the top of each of the carrots. I made a total of 3 carrots for this pot. I think all of these carrots turned out amazing. If you haven't already, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. I upload weekly home decor DIY videos, and you know you don't want to miss any of them. So go ahead and hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. A few days ago, I tore apart 2 old box springs. I'll be uploading that video soon. I looked on Pinterest to find some ideas for things I could create using some of the springs. I found this adorable bird's nest sitting on a bed spring and thought I would give it a try. It sounded like making a bird's nest was simple. Believe me, it's not. And it is a very messy project. So I would definitely recommend using a box or something with sides to try to contain all the grass and anything else you want to add to the bird's nest. I had this old bundle of wheat in my stash and thought, hey, that would be a great bird's nest. I cut the wheat and added it to a bowl with water and Mod Podge. With my hands, I mixed the wheat, Mod Podge, and water until the wheat was covered completely. Now my hands were so sticky I couldn't touch anything. So I just kept going with it. I continued adding wheat to the bowl and trying to make a bird's nest shape. I tried to use my hot air gun to dry the mixture, but I think I added way too much water. I took the mixture out of the bowl to try to dry the bottom of the nest with my hot air gun. And all the white you see is the water and Mod Podge. I should have put another bowl or a cookie sheet under the nest, but I used a paper towel to soak up what I could from my work table. And continued trying to shape up the nest. Since everything was so wet, I decided to try to squeeze as much water out as I could. I tried to break up as much of the wheat as I could because at this point I had so much glue on me I didn't want to touch my scissors or anything else. I continued working with the mixture until I was able to form a nest. I left the nest sitting on a cookie sheet overnight to let it dry. The next day, this is what I had. Not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I used some moss and applied it randomly to the nest. To attach the nest to the bed spring, I used this piece of wood, glued it to the small end of the bed spring, and then glued the nest to the wood. The bird nest I made is not perfect, but hey, I like it and it fits perfectly with my other Easter and spring decor. I put various color and size Dollar Tree eggs in the nest, and just look at how stinking cute. If you haven't already, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. I upload weekly home decor DIY videos, and you know you don't want to miss any of them. So go ahead and hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. I picked up this little bucket on a recent trip to Goodwill. I thought it was cute and that it would make a cute little decor piece for this spring. And the best part was the price was $1.99. You can't beat that. If you haven't checked out your local Goodwill for amazing deals, you will definitely need to go. I am always finding things I can use. I didn't like the eggs on the front and wanted to freshen up the bucket a little. I used some 220 sanding paper to remove as much of the eggs as I could. I was actually hoping it would remove all the paint. If it would have, I probably would have just left the bucket like it was without the eggs on them. Once I was finished sanding, I wiped the bucket down to remove all the sand dust before painting. The paint I used was Waverly Plaster. It's the closest I can find to white. I can't find white Waverly paint anywhere around me. I painted the entire bucket, including the metal around the top and the bottom of the bucket. I also painted some of the inside of the bucket to just give it all a uniform look. I left the handle as is because I love the way it looked. After it dried, I used some sandpaper again to roughen it up a bit and remove as much paint as I could from the metal on the top and bottom. This is when I realized I should have left the metal alone and not painted it. Oh well, lesson learned. Once I finished sanding, I used another wet wipe to wipe down the bucket to remove all the sand dust and to also clean my hands. I found this cute cut file for free on Design Bundles. I'll leave a link in the description for this free cut file. I did a little editing to the file in Design Space and cut it out on black matte vinyl. I applied the vinyl to transfer tape and then applied it to my bucket. I think this little bucket is perfect for spring and Easter. And look at how stinking cute it is on this bucket. First, I used some of this Dollar Tree Easter basket grass and added it to the bucket to give something for my carrots to sit in. I used several carrots I got from a craft haul I got off Marketplace and a few carrots from Dollar Tree. I sporadically placed them in the bucket until I liked the way they looked. And I think the bucket of carrots turned out pretty cute. If you haven't already, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. I upload weekly home decor DIY videos, and you know you don't want to miss any of them. So go ahead and hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. By doing so, you will help others, just like yourself, be able to find my home decor DIY videos. I had this Dollar Tree bunny head and wanted to do something cute with it. I took all the tinsel and cardboard off by cutting and unwrapping it. I usually hang on to everything I remove, but I really don't like tinsel and can't see me using it, so I tossed it in the trash. I used some white nautical rope from Dollar Tree. I untwisted the 3 cords, so I only used one of the cords at a time. I used my hot glue gun and placed a dab of hot glue on the back of the bunny form at the bottom on one of the ears. I wrapped the entire ear going in and out of the plastic form. My rope started to fray, so I used a piece of painter's tape and wrapped it around the end. This made it a lot easier to wrap the rope. I continued going in and out with the rope until I ran out. When I ran out of rope, I used another dab of glue to hold the rope in place on the back of the form. I wrapped the ends of the second rope with tape, glued the rope to the back of the form, and continued wrapping. When I got to the top of the ear, I used glue to secure the rope. I used the same process on the other ear. Once I'd finished both ears, I began wrapping the face of the bunny. I glued the rope to the back of the bunny's head, and starting in the back, I wrapped the rope around the front of the bunny. I also added glue to the top center plastic piece and pushed the rope tight while wrapping. When I got to the end of the rope, I glued it to the back of the bunny and started another piece of rope beside it. I continued doing this until I was at the bottom of the bunny. I used my hot air gun to remove the glue from the back of the cardboard cutouts and reuse them on the face as a guide for the next step. I glued the middle of the ears, the eyes, and the mouth back onto the bunny. I used some Dollar Tree pink flower yarn to make the inside of the ears. I glued the yarn just to the outside of the cutout. I continued with the yarn until the entire cutout was covered. I did the same thing with the other ear. I've had this yarn in my stash for a while now. I have never used it, but I will have to say it is adorable. It gives a little extra dimension to the ears, and it has these cute little flowers. I used a mechanical pencil, with the lead in the pencil of course, to push the yarn into place. For the eyes, nose, and mouth, I used Dollar Tree gray yarn to cover up the cardboard cutouts. I feel like the yarn gave the bunny added dimension and it made it so much cuter. I was going to leave my little bunny just like this, but then I realized somehow I had gotten something yellow on the side of the face. To cover up the discoloration, I used Dollar Tree florals and glued them around the bunny face. I wish I would have had enough of one color for this. I think it would have looked better that way. I may remove the flowers in the future and replace them with the same color flower around the top of the head. But I think my little bunny head turned out pretty stinking cute. If you haven't already, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. I upload weekly home decor DIY videos, and you know you don't want to miss any of them. So go ahead and hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. And as always, thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting!